Imagine yourself being taken away from the life you've always known, stripped of every freedom that you've always had. Picture yourself falling in love only to be tricked into a life of servitude and abuse. Think about yourself being watched 24/7 with the expectations of selling yourself for over $500 a night. For most of us, these situations seem unrealistic and extremely impossible. But according to the international nonprofit A21, over 27 million people in the world today face this as a gruesome reality. Slavery as we know it ended in the 1800s with the passing of the 13th Amendment. But little did we know that 100 years later, slavery would reach an all-time high. This is not the slavery of people being advertised across America and sold in chains. This is a form of slavery that, although being around for over 100 years, has flourished over the past few decades. Sex trafficking is a form of slavery that imprisons millions every single year, stripping them of their freedom, exploiting their bodies for instantaneous pleasure, and forcing them into a life that no one can imagine. My hope by the end of this speech is that you become aware of what sex trafficking is by grasping the main concepts of who, what, where, when, why, and how. Although these are basic questions, they are able to give us extreme insight into the facts about sex trafficking as well as the reasons behind it. According to the nonprofit, the Polaris Project, sex trafficking is legally defined as a commercial sex act induced by force, fraud, or coercion. It is important to note that sex trafficking is significantly different from commercial sex crimes. According to the Federal Trafficking Victims Protection Act, commercial sex acts can be defined as acts of prostitution and pornography. These actions are based off of choice, and this is where the line is drawn between giving yourself away individually by choice and being trapped into it and forced to do things. Trafficking victims are not given the choice, as mentioned before from the legal definition. These victims are forced or tricked into these lifestyles. And once they are in the trade, there is little to no hope of getting out on your own. As you can imagine, the ratio of women to men, the side of who goes to what, leads more towards the women's. According to the statistics provided by the A21 campaign, in 2013, 85% of trafficked victims in America were women. Although I would love to say that the statistics stop here and move on with things, that's not how it works. In 2013, 74% of the humans trafficked in America were children at around the age of 11 and 12. Traffickers look for women and men with backgrounds of abuse and children who have run away from home, were neglected, or thrown out of their house. Can anyone tell me where you might find these victims being exploited? Right. All of these were correct. However, most of the time, I would say that a majority of us would conclude that these are options and that these are choice-based actions. This is the reason why so many Americans are not aware of this trade in America. We conclude that these women choose to do this, but in reality, they are forced to do it. Along with these spots, victims are sold to men for hours at a time in residential brothels or homes. These aren't luxurious homes either. They are run-down buildings, oftentimes cramming 7 to 10 women in small, crammed spaces that are separated by a curtain or a sheet. Now, if you are anything like me, when I first found out about this trade, I first questioned how women could find themselves entangled in this mess. But as I did more research, I began to understand the process of how women were lured and trapped into this trade. As I mentioned before, traffickers feed off of women who were abused and neglected, and children who were shut out by their parents. According to a biographical story written by Tina Front, she found her way into the sex trafficking trade through what she thought to be an innocent relationship. She met a guy who began to listen to her, feel for her, and start to love her. About 6 months after she met him, he told her that he loved her, and she was very comfortable with him. She felt very safe with him. So she decided at the age of 14 to pack her stuff up and move across town with him. Now, when they were on their way to their new house, he decided to stop at a hotel so she could meet his family. Little did she know that when she walked into the hotel room, there would be 3 to 6 women chained to the hotel beds, drugged up, and hopelessly having nowhere to go. He told her that he loved her and that this was the only way that she could show him that she loved him, was to sell herself and sell sex to other men and to his friends. So on her first night out on the street, she was willing to do it. She was very nervous. She was walking up and down. She was very nervous. She was walking up and down. And when the night was ending, she realized she was not going to meet the quota of $500. So coming up $450 short, she was beaten in front of all of the other girls. The reason behind this horrendous trade is simply a way for men and women who sell these individuals is to make money. According to the CNN news article mentioned before, the average income for a trafficker a year is $600,000. After all, this is the second largest industry and fastest growing business in the nation. According to the fact sheet on the A21 website, only 1 to 2% of trafficked victims are rescued. As this industry has grown and continues to flourish in America and around the world, our government has become aware and has come up with ways to help end this movement. Nonprofits such as the International Justice Mission and the A21 campaign are constantly fighting to rescue these victims. Some of the biggest rescues have been at large political conventions and huge sports games such as the Super Bowl. Based on the information given, I can only hope that you are now informed of this rapidly growing industry of sex trafficking. Based on the research and the information given, it is concluded that sex trafficking is considered a crime in the world and over 27 million people are trapped in this business. Traffickers feed off of broken women and children, lure them by pretending they love them, and then force them into a life of slavery. Although this is not the type of slavery that we study in school and read books about, this is a very real form of slavery that we should all continue to stay informed about. Thank you.